Hey, happy, beautiful, amazing day. Dr. Bob Rakowski here out of Houston, Texas. Lots of questions about hypothyroidism and autoimmunity. And today we're going to share some answers and some physiology. So this is going to be a thyroid and autoimmune, maybe a little more thorough than a mini course. And quite simply, I want to enhance thyroid wisdom. That's going to be important to lead you to more health, happiness, and success, which is really my life mission. We start looking at that thyroid gland. It's in the neck. It's actually triggered by a gland above it called the pituitary, the master endocrine gland, by something called thyroid stimulating hormone. And then it's three primary hormones. T4 is most abundant. T3 is most active. Then we've got calcitonin, which is going to be very important really for calcium balance and bone health as well. When we start looking at thyroid releasing hormone, that actually comes from the hypothalamus, which stimulates the pituitary. We'll actually talk a little bit more about that later, because if you're under stress, that is going to be inhibited. So stress inhibits the thyroid. So there is our T4 molecule. It's a couple molecules of tyrosine, an amino acid, 4 molecules of iodine. And that's why it's named T4. And notice that T3 just has 3 iodines. By the way, there's also a T2 and a reverse T2, but this is the major active thyroid hormone, anywhere from 300 to 800% stronger than T4, depending upon the tissue. And reverse T3 is considered the major inhibitor of thyroid function. I'll talk mostly about hypothyroid because that is far more common: hair loss, fatigue, sensitivity to cold, constipation, increased cholesterol, weight gain, dry skin. And hyperthyroid is basically the opposite of that. By the way, you don't want to have hyperthyroid because it can burn out your cellular energy production and lead to permanent damage. But again, these symptoms, unexplained weight gain, the constant tiredness, that has to do with metabolism, even infertility can be a thyroid problem. And then let's not forget that the brain needs a lot of energy. So memory challenges can also exist. So where does T3 and thyroid hormone act? Well, it's on this thing called the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, that make 94.4% of human energy. So notice there's a direct mitochondrial T3 pathway for burning energy, including and especially fat, and even regulation of cell differentiation. And I'll make an important point of that because cells differentiate. We don't start out as stem cells, and it's an important factor in health. But when cells don't differentiate properly or even de-differentiate, that is a hallmark of very aggressive cancer. So thyroid challenges are associated with cancer and certainly diabetes. Diabetes probably more through the fat gain, low energy, low activity mechanism. So notice when it talks about this factor of differentiation, differentiated cells can be reprogrammed to stem cells. That's actually a good finding because that has some application in regenerative medicine. And if we do that in a healthy way, it can be healthy. But if it's done under unhealthy circumstances, the term oncogenesis, similar to carcinogenesis, this is the process that starts cancer. So if we're going to have thyroid, we want it healthy. We want its action on the tissue to be healthy. And it's also, again, related to diabetes. Those are the strongest connections. You've probably heard me lecture about the deadly quartet: stress, toxins, malnutrition, physical inactivity. These are all factors in hypothyroid. So this was before the pandemic. It was estimated 3/4 of all medical visits are related to some form of stress. A couple things. One, I think medical visits are down. It seems that trust in medicine is down. And we probably want to take a good look at that. But I would bet that stress is higher, as indicated by a lot of issues with alcoholism, drug abuse, suicide, depression, things like that. I've said it before, I didn't say it first, you're either making stress hormones or not sex hormones or not thyroid hormones, or even growth hormones. So bottom line is stress is going to decrease anti-aging and repair, metabolism, and sexual organs and function. And ultimately, I believe it's the #1 killer on the planet. When we look at toxins, there's some very specific thyroid toxins. It's considered the most environmentally sensitive organ. Mercury, perchlorate from essentially airplane and rocket fuel. Halides or halogens, those are fluorides, chloromides, and bromides. I'll talk about those a little later. Nitrates, plastics, parabens, and phthalates all are problems. So here's what we know. We do get mercury in air, water, fish. Fortunately, amalgam fillings are going away. Believe it or not, they're in some cosmetics, lotions, and fragrances. And as hard as it is to imagine, this extremely toxic element is often injected as a preservative in vaccines. Plenty of people have been against that for a long, long time. Mercury itself is known to increase thyroid autoimmunity. So if you've seen me talk before, PubMed ID, this means this is registered National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health database, a very significant risk factor for autoimmune thyroid. When we start looking at perchlorate from military operations in aerospace, it is found in the drinking water, and that's not a good thing. And it actually blocks the iodine uptake by the thyroid gland. So remember that thyroid hormone needs four iodine molecules, and it's blocked by that. The halogen family, that's this element of the periodic table. I don't know how many people are, chemistry nerds. I am a minor chemistry nerd, but the halogens, fluorides, chlorides, bromides, iodine. Fluoride has the highest electronegativity. That can preferentially bind instead of iodine. That's in drinking water. Chloride, by the way, is also in drinking water. Then we got bromides, which are in baked goods commonly. And all of those can be major inhibitors of thyroid function. When we start looking at these nitrates, predominant source is found in fertilizer, and this gets into the groundwater and other locations, and we're essentially poisoned by it. And not only is it related to hypothyroid, it's also associated with an increased risk of thyroid cancer. More nitrate, more risk of thyroid cancer. NPK, remember 3 elements, that's the fertilizer that's used so often, and we've used it a ton, hundreds of millions of tons actually since 1950, but it takes 30 elements to grow healthy plants, animals, and humans. If you pull 30 out for every 3 you put back in, you ultimately have a big problem, and that's where we are now. And 2020, malnutrition, the leading cause of death. So I'm the guy that said, hey, why don't we teach people about nutrition, get them on good multivitamins and vitamin D and, vitamin C and things that are proven to be powerful antivirals. Parabens and phthalates, these are basically what we call xenoestrogens. That's spelled with an X, X-E-N-O, xenoestrogens. And estrogens increase something called thyroid hormone binding globulin. And by the way, it does exactly what it says it's going to do. It binds up the thyroid hormone. And these are significantly higher in people that consume fast food regularly. Estrogens promote autoimmunity. We'll get to autoimmunity later, whereas androgens protect. By the way, as men become obese, they make more estrogens and become more prone to autoimmunity. There's my graphic about binding something up. The estrogen does increase thyroid hormone binding globulin, and women with more estrogen are 6 times more likely to have hypothyroidism. Phthalates, 19 different sources this article called out. Fast food, especially pesticides, cosmetics, infant care products, probably not what we want to be using with kids. Probably organics are a really good choice. Certain medications, and then a bunch of common household items also have these phthalates. And what about other toxins? Well, mycotoxins, your mouth can have certain toxins that can inhibit thyroid, and electromagnetic frequencies. So later I'll talk about something called Ganoderma, but this is the top superfood on the planet. It's a mushroom, so it's technically a fungus, but it has antifungal properties. And more than that, it also has anti-yeast properties, which can be very difficult to get rid of. And Ganoderma can inhibit the yeast biofilm, and therefore it's no longer protected by it. It's powerful to kill mouth bacteria. So we even have a Ganoderma toothpaste that we're really excited about. And people report that, happily, their breath improves substantially if that is an issue with them. When we start looking at EMFs, the ultimate toxic EMF is gamma rays. So we'll talk about that, and X-rays and ultraviolet, but then we'll talk about cell phones and the 5G. So Marvel Comics, Bruce Banner, belted by gamma rays, turns into the Hulk, basically a mega mutation for him. Well, interestingly enough, that superfood Ganoderma protects against gamma radiation. And remember, thyroids are very sensitive to EMF. Ganoderma also has an enhanced killing effect of both radiation and chemotherapy while protecting normal cells. So it seems it ought to be a standard of care in cancer. Another reference says the same thing. It protects the brain against radiation damage from cell phones, and it even protects us against sun-induced photoaging. So if it's good against all of those, do we think it might also be good against 5G? I believe so. And by the way, I suppose they'll come out with 6G as well. Okay, well, Ganoderma, protective against the most powerful and even something less, so maybe against 5 and 6G as well. In fact, I think likely. When you start looking at these different causes of hypothyroidism, autoimmunity, we'll have a section on that, estrogen toxicity, low stomach acid, leaky gut, adrenal fatigue, etc. It turns out that all those PubMeds relate to Ganoderma, which again is good for all of the causes known to cause hypothyroid. And certainly we need good thyroid for ideal body composition, but we also need good insulin, a healthy gut, healthy adrenals, healthy liver. Again, Ganoderma, 6 different fat loss mechanisms. When we look at the stress hormone issue, it does inhibit thyroid hormone. So our releasing factor, corticotropin releasing factor, inhibits thyrotropin and gonadotropin releasing factor. So less metabolism, less sex, steroids. Hashimoto's thyroiditis is an autoimmune condition, and it is the most common cause of hypothyroid. So I have a mini course on autoimmunity, and we'll correct this idea, of the misnomers about autoimmunity. Your immune system doesn't decide one day that it hates your thyroid or other tissues and tries to kill it. It turns out that those cells become sick. And the immune system sees them as a threat, and they should take out bad cells. So plenty of people, when I ask them, well, wait a minute, I thought your immune system was designed to protect you. They say, well, yeah, I thought that too. So why is mine trying to kill me? It's not. It's trying to kill bad cells. And this reference says that autoreactivity, autoimmunity is normal and even crucial to normal function. So there you have it. When I teach this, I show a picture of this Marine, then I show a picture of him badly burned, where his mother wouldn't even recognize him. And if your cells, your immune cells can't recognize your cells, it will kill him. And we'll talk about some other things that can happen to the cells, like viral infected or even spike protein makers. Then you can create an autoimmune attack against those cells. So this reference, cell injury precedes autoimmune disease. The medical model is basically going to say there's a genetic predisposition in some autoimmunity for sure. The environment, I believe, is a major factor. So this Venn diagram should be really heavily weighted on environment. And the immune system is killing bad cells. So when we look at this concept of vaccine-induced autoimmunity, nearly 2,700 PubMed studies. There ought not be a single doctor on planet Earth that can deny the vaccine-induced autoimmunity connection. Almost 60 years we've known about this. And by the way, look at all of these studies in 2021, and I'll tell you why. COVID-19, there was 113 studies on that and its induction of autoimmunity. And look at this. Subacute thyroiditis, basically Hashimoto's. How about Graves'? That one's much more dangerous. That one can actually kill you. And how about autoimmune hepatitis triggered by the SARS-CoV? Now that's 3 of the 113 studies that I just decided to highlight. So what do? We use immune balancing nutrients to calm this down. because we can actually slow it down a bit so the body can heal at a rate where it doesn't suffer more damage. So vitamin D, DHEA, Ganoderma, perilla-seed, resolvins, and gut repair are all things that can balance the immune system. And powerful language here, Ganoderma can be used to treat and or prevent autoimmune disease. So back to our deadly quartet, malnutrition, leading cause of death. When we start looking at thyroid, we need magnesium, zinc, iodine, vitamin C, riboflavin is B2, also selenium, healthy liver, healthy adrenals. And that, by the way, means we should both detox and de-stress as well. And then another deeper level of information shows that magnesium is going to be important, and iron and coenzyme Q10 can be a factor as well. I like to dot the I's and cross the T's and fill in every rung on the nutrition pyramid. And the superfood Ganoderma itself can do it, but you probably want more than just that. It's got all the fabulous 50, all the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, proteins, carbohydrates, fat, fiber, and water in doses that make a difference to human health. And I happen to really love it in coffee and tea, because when people drink our coffee and tea, they feel better. They never need to be reminded. They never plan to quit. And every sip is an upgrade to their body. Our stress reset, I've got YouTube videos on this, 7 to 10 days of melatonin every waking hour, theanine every waking hour, Ganoderma spores every waking hour, the PubMeds showing that that can calm the body, mind, and spirit. When we start looking at liver detoxification, it's certainly nutrient dependent, it's energy dependent, and it's protein dependent. Phase 1 of liver enzymes are cytochrome P450s. So you need to have all of those things for a good detox. And I recommend 7 to 10 days, twice a year, of a detox medical food and organic vegetables. And again, this is something that I've used for nearly 30 years with phenomenal success. And by the way, Ganoderma is a big part of that, and it's good for all of the accessory detox pathways: skin, liver, kidneys, intestines, and lungs. When it comes to moving right, pain and fatigue are the top reasons people don't move right. And by the way, not moving leading to less muscle mass leads to an association to lower thyroid activity. And so keep in mind that this was not a cause and effect study. They didn't draw that conclusion, but low muscle mass is associated with lower levels of thyroid function. When it comes to moving right, Ganoderma, anti-inflammatory by more than a dozen mechanisms. It's even better for the pain relief of rheumatoid arthritis than rheumatoid drugs, and it can reduce the pain of fibromyalgia. So some very powerful PubMeds there. My philosophy on motion: every joint, every range of motion, every day, pain-free. That'll keep you moving nicely. And then for specialty athletes, I always recommend that they train every fiber type and every energy system proportional to the demands of their activity or sport. 3 major categories: power athletes, endurance athletes, or hybrid athletes, or the CrossFit type. Now, if it were Tuesday and I had asked the doctor, I would actually answer your questions now live. And Tuesday, I'll be at 1:15 in the afternoon and at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Both of those are standard time. But if you send me a private message with your question, I'll be happy to answer it. As always, I'm Dr. Bob Rakowski, absolutely knowing that we can all be happy, healthy, and successful.